So here is a headline from CBS this morning, quote, "Undocumented transgender woman filing domestic violence claim arrested at El Paso courthouse by ICE, official says. The ultimate victim. We've found the ultimate victim. An illegal immigrant transgender woman abused by a domestic partner deported for the crime of showing up to a courthouse. Stop the presses." Here's some other media headlines about this horrifying story. ICE detains domestic violence victim in El Paso court. Huffington Post. ICE reportedly detained a domestic abuse victim who sought court protection. Newser. ICE agents arrest woman in domestic violence court. New York Magazine. ICE arrests domestic violence victim at Texas courthouse. The Washington Post. This is really unprecedented. ICE detains woman seeking domestic abuse protection at Texas courthouse. Even Fox News. ICE agents reported arrest alleged domestic violence victim at Texas courthouse. Now, here's how the headline should actually have read. ICE agents arrest repeatedly convicted criminal for deportation at courthouse. The transgender woman in question has been deported 6 times before and voluntarily returned to Mexico one other time. Here is the rap sheet for the transgender woman from 2013. Assault, probation violence, domestic violence, false imprisonment of a minor. That information, which seems sort of important, is buried in the second to last paragraph of a 19-paragraph CBS News story. The Washington Post buried it in paragraph 10. The Huffington Post didn't mention it at all. All of the stories mentioned a comment from the county prosecutor who said that ICE knew about the deportee's location because of an anonymous tip. The prosecutor suggested the tip came from the alleged domestic abuser, but then admitted she had no specific information that would lead her to that conclusion. There are provisions, by the way, in U.S. law that apparently prevent arrest of someone for immigration status based solely on reports from a domestic abuser. But you don't get the whole story from the media, particularly not from their headlines. The crusade is now on to find victims of the supposedly Gestapo-esque Trump immigration enforcement policy. And the media won't let inconvenient facts like repeat criminality of the arrested stand in the way. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. It's mailbag day. Yeah, we're going to get to the mailbag today. Everybody is very excited about all of it, but we'll get to that in just a second. First, we have to say thank you to our advertisers over at Zeal. So, if you are somebody who is desperately in need of massage, and I am one of these people, I will admit, I get very stressed and I require massages from time to time. Zeal is the place where you go to zeal.com and you can get a massage at your house. They come to your house, they cater to you, and you can choose the kind of masseuse that you want, the type of massage. It's on demand, it's at home. We tried it out, actually. My mother-in-law came into town, and I was supposed to get the massage from Zeal, and instead, because I was a good son-in-law, I gave it to my mother-in-law. Our relationship has never been better. It worked out great. Our listeners get $25 off their first massage by using the promo code BEN at checkout at zeal.com. Right now, it costs about, on average, 20 to 50% less than if you go to a local spa or hotel. Plus, you don't have to actually go there and wait for an appointment. You actually make the appointment online on the app, and then they come to your house, and the masseuses are absolutely first rate. It's like bringing a spa into your house. They bring all of the materials. They bring the table. They bring the scented candle. The whole deal they bring. Okay, it's Zeal. It's spelled ZEEL.com, and make sure to click the add promo code at checkout to use my promo code BEN. You get $25 off your first massage, Zeal.com, or you can go to their iPhone or Android app. You get that special offer when you try Zeal today. They have about 8,000 massage therapists all over the country. Again, use that promo code BEN at checkout to get $25 off your first massage. They're the first and leading same-day in-home massage company, and I can vouch for their quality because, as I say, my mother-in-law has never been happy for having stolen a massage that was allotted to me. In any case, we begin. So, lots of good Trump, lots of bad Trump. Donald Trump has been a very, very busy president over the last 24 hours. So we begin. Okay, so let's start with, let's play the good Trump, bad Trump thing. We haven't done that in at least 3 hours. Let's do that.
Good Trump, bad Trump, which one will we get today?
Yes, indeed you do. It's time for some good Trump, bad Trump, and who's coming, boom, it's good Trump. Yes, he's back. So after a week of stupidity about Michael Flynn, we now actually get some good Trump, and not just good Trump, great Trump. This is the best that Trump has looked in his presidency since he picked Neil Gorsuch. Here's where Trump is actually really good. When Trump has these sort of pre-scheduled events with people that he likes, and he gets to play the triumphant conqueror, great. You know, with Neil Gorsuch, that event was beautifully staged, beautifully managed. He handled himself well. And then he did it with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, yesterday. So Netanyahu shows up after 8 long years of being out in the cold, thanks to President Barack, I'm not real fond of them Jews, Obama. And his anti-Israel policy is really egregious. I mean, I talked about this for years when President Obama was president. Now, Donald Trump has come into office. Nobody really knows where he is on any of these issues. He's made overtures that make him sound very pro-Israel. He's obviously been very warm toward Bibi Netanyahu. And yesterday, he was extremely warm toward Bibi Netanyahu. He really reset the relationship. I mean, it was the equivalent of handing Netanyahu a reset button. He basically said, we're here for you. We stand by you. We're not going to stand with terrorism. We're not going to stand alongside radical Islamic terrorists just because they have the modifier Palestinian by their name. And so Donald Trump shows up and he stands along Netanyahu, and you can see the warmth. I mean, Netanyahu is so relieved that he doesn't have to deal with that jackass Obama anymore. I mean, last time, Obama was the kind of guy who was making Netanyahu leave through the back door and getting all ticked off if Netanyahu spoke to a joint session of Congress and putting severe pressure on the Israelis at the very end of his tenure through not vetoing bad UN resolutions. And so now Netanyahu comes to the White House, and he's actually, the red carpet is rolled out for him, and the event is really good. So here is Donald Trump talking about a peace deal, and he does something that's pretty notable. He doesn't talk about the two-state peace deal. He doesn't talk about the idea of the two-state solution, which we'll talk about in a second.
And I believe that the great opportunity for peace comes from a regional approach, from involving our newfound Arab partners in the pursuit of a broader peace and peace with the Palestinians. And I greatly look forward to discussing this in detail with you, Mr. President, because I think that if we work together, we have a shot.
And Trump obviously agrees with that. And you can see that Netanyahu is really, really excited that Trump is there. So Trump himself didn't talk about the two-state solution. And this has set the media off. Why didn't he talk about the two-state solution? Because the two-state solution is stupid. Okay, I knew it was stupid when I was 9, and they were doing the Oslo Accords. It turns out that giving terrorists a state is not a good idea. The Palestinian Authority was a terrorist group. It is a terrorist group. Hamas is a terrorist group. Islamic Jihad is a terrorist group. Giving terrorists a state is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. And when you say we're making a peace deal, and the peace deal is going to be that at the end you get a state, you've already given up what you're negotiating. Right? There's no more negotiation. So why exactly would the Palestinians give up anything at that point? Why would they stop the terrorism? They know what the end point of this negotiation is, and they know that all the pressure is on Israel to concede things. Beyond that, the stupidity of Oslo was saying that the Palestinians have a right to an independent state. There is no such historic right for the Palestinians to have an independent state. That state was called Jordan historically. Right? When they partitioned British Mandate Palestine, there were two states, right? There were really only two states, and it was Jordan and Israel, and that was it. And then they sliced off another like quasi little state, and that was the so-called West Bank and Gaza Strip, and the Arabs rejected that deal. So there's no history to having a second Palestinian state in the region. Jordan is 70% Palestinian. The idea that it was a foregone conclusion, the only way there was ever going to be peace was to put a terrorist group in charge of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Absolute stupidity. When the Jews pulled out of the Gaza Strip, it immediately was turned into Hamasistan, which is an actual terror state. And the fact that everybody keeps glomming onto this two-state deal, this two-state solution, is really dumb. And it was really dumb for the Israelis to do it because it was basically suggesting that the Jews were interlopers in the region, that the Jews had to make some sort of deal to give away the heart of what it means to be Jewish, really. I mean, Judea and Samaria are the heart of biblical Israel. Giving away the heart of biblical Israel to the Palestinian Arabs suggests that they have a primacy of historical claim that simply does not exist. Oslo was foolish for that reason, historically, morally, politically, an abomination. And finally, recognizing that after 25 years of failure seems like a pretty good approach. It seems like after doing this for 2 decades of silliness, maybe we should try something else. Now, there are a bunch of different things that could be done here. One could be just a continuation of status quo, which is you don't get to ship weapons in. You guys get to handle your own crap internally. And as long as there's no terrorism, we can have free flow of people in and out of Palestinian areas without granting independent statehood. That's not an apartheid state. Okay, the United States basically has that sort of relationship with Puerto Rico. Right? Puerto Rico isn't a sovereign country. Puerto Rico is still administered. It's territory of the United States, technically. They don't get to vote in the presidential elections. They're not American citizens. But the United States actually helps out in the administration of Puerto Rico. And so suggesting that this is some sort of apartheid state, if they were to come to this sort of arrangement, is silly. There's also the Caroline Glick solution, which would be a one-state solution, which is basically Israel annexes everything. And then Israel actually gives citizenship to the Palestinians because, guess what? There are 6 million Jews in the area. There are only like 1.5 million Palestinians. And that's not the world's biggest deal. So there are plenty of solutions other than we have to give an independent state to a bunch of genocidal people who wish to wipe Jews off the map. It's always funny. They always talk about the Jews participating in some sort of ethnic cleansing effort by moving Palestinians. They never talk about the Palestinians forcibly moving Jews out of how many Jews live in quote-unquote Palestine? The answer is zero. 0 Jews live there. How many Israeli Arabs live in Israel? Over 1 million. So the idea that the ethnic cleansing is coming from the Jewish side is really quite spectacularly stupid. Getting rid of the idea that the Palestinians have to have their own state as a precondition for any negotiation is a good first step, because if you're actually going to have a negotiation, everything should be on the table. Nothing should be off the table. The reason Netanyahu wants to bring in regional partners on the peace deal is because he knows that Jordan doesn't want the Palestinians. He knows Egypt doesn't want the Palestinians. He knows the Saudis don't want the Palestinians. All of them oppose a Palestinian state. Here's the reality. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, none of them want a Palestinian state. They all pretend they do for public consumption. None of them actually do. The reason they don't actually want that is because if there were a Palestinian state on the border of Jordan, it would immediately become a terror threat to Jordan itself. And the Egyptians don't want a Palestinian terror state on their border. They've been having all sorts of border trouble. The leader, al-Sisi, has been having all sorts of border trouble with Gazastan, with Hamasistan in Gaza, because Egypt is in control of the Sinai Desert, which runs all the way up to the Gaza Strip. So none of these countries actually want there to be a Palestinian state. Netanyahu knows that. That's why Netanyahu is saying we should have a regional approach here. Listen, Netanyahu, okay, the Israeli government has a on the table constant offer to the Jordanians that if the Jordanians want to take over all of the Palestinian territories, they can. You know what the Jordanians say? They say no. No one wants to be in charge of this. You know why? Because it's filled with a terror government. Okay, so Netanyahu says all of this, and then Trump says something that's not so good. He says that Netanyahu should hold off on the settlements, and he does it in typical kind of Trumpian casual style. Here's what he says.
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. I know that every president would like to. Most of them have not started till late because they never thought it was possible. And it wasn't possible because they didn't do it. But Bibi and I have known each other a long time, a smart man, great negotiator, and I think we're going to make a deal.
Okay, so Trump. So this is the part that's slightly disquieting, is when Trump says things like, "I know we're going to make a deal." What kind of pressure is he going to bring to bear? So far, so good. I don't see a lot of pressure. As far as him mentioning the settlements, I think that he does so because the State Department and people around him tell him he has to mention the settlements so he looks even-handed. It doesn't make a lot of sense to say that the two-state solution is not a precondition to negotiations, and then to say settlements have to stop is really kind of silly, because the only reasons for settlements to stop is the idea that you're eventually going to transfer all of the control over that territory to this growing terror state, this Palestinian terror state. That's the only reason you wouldn't want Jews building additional bathrooms on the back of their houses or building more settlements. Because the truth is, the Arabs in Palestine, right? The Arabs in the Palestinian areas, there is no Palestine. The Arabs in the Palestinian-controlled areas, they would be thrilled. I mean, realistically, they'd be thrilled if Israel would annex all the territory. There are constant polls showing that Israeli Arabs, given the option to move to Palestinian territories or stay in Israel, they all want to stay in Israel. Why? Because they have jobs, they're wealthy, they live free, and it turns out that the areas controlled by the Palestinians are kind of a crap hole because the administration there steals billions of dollars from their own people and takes all the foreign aid and puts it in their pocket. Netanyahu obviously is thrilled about all of this. He says, look, we don't need a two-state solution that ends with a terror state.
What does Abu Mazen mean by two states, okay? What does he mean? A state that doesn't recognize the Jewish state, a state that basically is open for attack against Israel? What are we talking about? Are we talking about Costa Rica, or are we talking about another Iran? So obviously it means different things. I told you what are the conditions that I believe are necessary for an agreement. It's the recognition of the Jewish state, and it's Israel's security control of the entire area. Otherwise, we're just fantasizing. Otherwise, we'll get another failed state, another terrorist Islamist dictatorship that will not work for peace, but work to destroy us, but also destroy any hope for a peaceful future for our people.
Okay, and all that Netanyahu says there is absolutely 100% true. So, good for Trump for taking the blinders off with regard to this idiotic two-state solution nonsense. It's time to move beyond failed failed attempts of the past, and time to talk about realistic solutions in that area. Realistic solutions will involve security, not peace, but the security that's going to be arranged is not going to be on the back of setting up a terror state in the heart of Israel. That's absolute foolishness. Good for President Trump. Okay, so we now have to take our break over at Facebook and YouTube, but we have lots more coming up. We have to get to more of the fallout about Flynn, some bad Trump. We have to get to the media just making complete fools of themselves, the Republicans all over themselves. Plus, we have the mailbag. So tons more coming up here on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go to dailywire.com right now to subscribe. $8 a month will buy you that subscription. You can see the rest of the show live. You can be part of the mailbag right now. We're going to be doing the mailbag in just a few minutes, and you get to be part of it. You get to send in your questions live, and I will answer them live and make your life 100% better. If your life is crappy, it will now be just glorious. It will be a utopia of happiness. If your life is already a utopia of happiness, well, then I will send you directly to heaven with the mailbag. So you can go to dailywire.com right now, subscribe. Annual subscribers get a free copy of The Arroyo, fictional film about what's happening down at the southern border. Really good film about the crisis on the southern border with drug cartels coming across into Arizona and what one rancher does to stop it. dailywire.com is where you subscribe, or listen later at iTunes and SoundCloud. By the way, we are now ranked overall in the top 20 of all podcasts in the United States, not just political podcasts in the United States, all podcasts in the United States. I think we're ranked as high as 14 on iTunes right now and climbing fast. So that's pretty cool stuff. We are the largest conservative podcast in the nation.